Hey guys, today we are working on graphing equations. So if you could please go into your book to page 540. We're going to start where we left off a couple days ago. And keep in mind as we go through this lesson that we talked about the general format of our equation, which is y equals mx plus b. And in that equation, the m is always our slope and the b is always our y-intercept. So, keeping that in mind, if I look at the your turn question on page 540, we're asked to graph the equation y equals 1/2 x plus 1. So if I think of my equation y equals mx plus b, I always start with the b, which is over here, and that's the positive 1. And that tells me where the graph crosses the y-axis. So I'm going to come up to positive 1 and plot a point here. And then I use the slope, which is the coefficient of x, to get from this y-intercept to the next point. Keep in mind that your slope, the numerator, tells me how to move along the y-axis, and the denominator tells me how to move along the x-axis. So I would go up one spot and over two spots, and then plot a point. Again, I go up 1, over 2, and plot a point. Please always include at least 3 dots and then go ahead and connect those dots to make yourself a line. If we look at the second equation here, my y-intercept this time is 4, so that tells me that I start at 4 on the y-axis. And my slope is -3. Keep in mind any whole number can be made a fraction by putting it over the whole number 1. So this slope has a change in y of -3 and a change in x of +1. So I'm going to come down 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 1. And I plot my second point. And then again I go down 3, 1, 2, 3, over 1, and plot my point. And again, once you have at least 3 dots, go ahead, draw your line through them. At this time, you guys can go ahead, pause the video, and I'd like you all to complete textbook page 542. All right, welcome back. I hope page 542 went well. At this time, let's go to page 543. And I'd like to take a look at the bottom of 543. Numbers 6 through 11. And in this section, it asks us to identify the coordinates of 4 points on the line with each given slope and y-intercept. So we're going to do number 6 together so you could see what's expected in these type of questions. So the first thing I want you to think about, if I'm dealing with a slope of 5 and a y-intercept of -1, what would that equation look like? So keeping our format of y equals mx plus b, the first thing I'll do is replace m with the number for slope, so I'm going to put a 5 there, and I'll replace b with the y-intercept, which is a -1. Now that I have this equation, I'm going to think back to the function tables we worked on earlier this week, keeping in mind that a line is made up of many, many, many points, and I'm just choosing 4 of those points. To keep all of us consistent, let's use the x values -1, 0, 1, and 2. And now what I'll do is I'll use this equation that we just created and I'll complete the table. So 5x, I see plus a -1, I'm going to combine that and make it a -1. So simply what happens, I take y equals 5. I'm replacing x with its current value of -1, and I'm solving. So 5 times -1 is -5, minus 1 would be -6. My next entry, x now has a value of 0, so 5 times 0 minus 1. Well, 5 times 0 is 0, minus 1 is negative 1. For the third row, we have y equals 5 times 1 minus 1. 5 times 1 is 5, minus 1 is 4. And then finally, x is 2, so y equals 5 times 2 minus 1. 5 times 2 is 10, minus 1 is 9. And this last column, as we discussed, is just for organization. So we have negative 1, negative 6, 0, negative 1, 1, 4, and 2, 9. So this right-hand column here, these 4 ordered pairs, that would be your answer for number 6. So you would just list those ordered pairs on that line. At this time, go ahead and continue on with this page. I'm going to ask you to complete the entire page.